Hello. Hi. I'm Carlos Reina, VP of Operation, VP of Revenue for ElevenLabs, and we do voice technology. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to give you a 2 seconds introduction about ElevenLabs, and then we're going to be doing a demo for which we've actually cloned Jeremy here. But we are going to be doing it live. So which is Jeremy last night sent me some data, and we're going to do it all together here. So who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Very briefly. So I think when I think about voice, it's think of it a little bit about it, right? So it's the most traditional and natural form of communication, right? For the past 50,000 years, as humans, we've been talking to each other, right? And over the past 20 years, a lot of the investments have been going towards reproducing the real world in a computer so that we can destroy it with an Avenger movie, for instance, right? And some of that investment has also gone into AI voices. So you have a lot of the home speakers and smart speakers that are able to talk to you, to give you weather information, and anything you need, and remind you of calendar events and all of that stuff. But it still doesn't really seem natural, right? So we ended up doing is we spent the past 20 months trying to understand what makes a voice sound human, right? And that's the key. Because if you're not able to do that and you're not able to replicate all those elements, you lose the entire magic of it. So what we ended up finding was that to be able to actually recreate a human voice, you need to actually sound natural. And it sounds silly, but if it doesn't sound natural, sound human, you break the entire magic of it. That was number one. Number two is that sometimes we are doing long presentations or narrations and things like that, but the majority of times we're actually having conversations, right? So to be able to actually generate AI voices that are believable, we need to be able to do the two things, dialogue and also narration. One of the other things that we do as humans is what we call contextual awareness, right? So we look at each other and we're able to actually change our pitch, our style, our intonation, our pacing, anything based on the reaction of people that we have in front of us, right? So we thought if we wanted to make it natural, we need to be able to incorporate all of those elements as well. And then finally, our brains are wired to understand that we all make mistakes all the time, right, when we speak. So probably over the past 30 seconds, I made 20 mistakes that I didn't even realize, but your brains and my brains are actually making it seem natural. So things about breaths and repetition of words and all of that stuff. So what we ended up doing is we've created the most realistic and versatile and contextually aware AI voices in the market right now. So we see ourselves more of a pure research company that also happens to have a product that enables our customers to actually create content at scale, simple and plain. And we came out from one single problem, which is when you are in certain countries, in some Eastern European countries, in some Asian countries, you go to a movie and you're actually seeing one single voice dubbing the entire movie, right? They do the male version, the male voices, the female voices, and your experience is really, really bad. So we thought there has to be a much better way to do that at scale, right? So we started with text-to-speech. And essentially, for us, it's all about the quality of it, right? So nothing else really matters if you're not able to actually make people immerse themselves in what you're actually, the story you're telling. So we've been working on the entertainment space, on the publishing, AI agents, and a bunch of other ones. And just so that you get an idea of how quickly things have evolved, we ended up releasing our product at the end of January this year with only English. 7 months later, we have 28 languages that we support, including Spanish, German, Mandarin, Korean, Japanese, and so on and so forth, right? And I think at the end of it, it's all about the content, so being able to do both things, dialogue and long-form narration. It's about including the context in it, so we're able to analyze the entire text that you're trying to generate and then extract metadata information and feed it back into the models so that the models automatically they decide where to put the emphasis, the intonation, all of it is automatically decided by the models. And then finally, we're able to clone someone's voice, anyone's voice, as long as they give the permission, right? And we have multiple ways of doing it. a low-quality version of it or medium-quality version of it, which requires 30 seconds worth of data, which is what we're going to be doing with Jeremy's voice in a second. But we also have like the professional version of it, which is like 30 minutes worth of data, and we can clone anyone's voices like at 99% accuracy. But again, we require always the permission for that. I think like one of the interesting pieces here for us is the fact that like we are multilingual, right? So any voice that we generate by nature is always going to be multilingual. So it's my voice that I'm cloning, for instance, and is able to speak in English, in Spanish, in Japanese, in Korean, in Swedish, any language that we actually support, which is like a massive breakthrough overall. So let me actually drop this. We're going to go into the actual product. And I have like two different things. So here what I did essentially was, I'm a big fan of The Last of Us, the video games, and also like the series. Sorry. And what I ended up doing is like taking a little bit of the script of The Last of Us and then putting it in here, right? So like just like copy and paste. And then we will render it, and you will see how it actually works. But before we go that, what we ended up doing is saying, hey, like you have a bunch of different voices that you can do, that you can use. You have a bunch of different settings. We're trying to make it as simple as possible, right? And the most important one is like what we call stability, right? So stability is how close you want the voice to sound to a human, right? So if you want something that sounds like completely like standard, like something that is like same monotone, like no ups and downs and everything, great, fantastic. Let's actually make it more stable, right? If you want something that is actually like has ups and downs normal of a human voice, then we make it more variable, and then we go back down, right? Simple and plain. Everything else is about like whether the audio has any background noises and how we clean it to be able to actually extract all of the data and everything. That's pretty much it. And then what we ended up doing is like we have a bunch of different models. So multilingual V2 is what we released like about 3 weeks ago with like 28 languages and a bunch of other ones. But let me just like press generate, right? So let's do it maybe, I don't know. Should we do it like more monotone? Like let's see how it actually works. You will see that like there is absolutely no performance here. And let's press generate. It takes a couple of seconds to generate content, and you should be able to hear it.
Man, that was close. Bill approaches Ellie. Thanks for the heroics and all. Bill takes off his gas mask and reaches behind his back. Ellie? Ellie reaches out her arm for a handshake. Bill grabs her wrist and quickly handcuffs it. Hey, what are you? Joel! Joel turns around. Bill! Ellie struggling. Let me go!
So that was okay. Not that great, right? But what happens if we move stability all the way to like the other side? What if we try to make it somewhere around like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter much, right? But like we try to make it more unstable in a way in which like us, we would behave, right? So we try to put the emphasis in different places and all of that stuff. That's what essentially it's going to be doing now. It's trying to regenerate the entire text in a completely different setting. And then like you can also think about it from the brackets. Like the information in the brackets, it's more like contextual information for the models. So the model style is different.
That was close.
So the model style is different if the information is in brackets because it understands it's more of a narration style versus like what actually the main dialogue is. So let me just like replay this for a second.
Man, that was close. Bill approaches Ellie. Thanks for the heroics and all. Bill takes off his gas mask and reaches behind his back. Ellie! Ellie reaches out her arm for a handshake. Bill grabs her wrist and quickly handcuffs it. Hey! What do you... Joel! Joel turns around. Bill! Ellie struggling. Let me go!
So that's a little bit more of a better performance, right? And the end goal here for us is to be able to give you like the tools to like prompt it whenever you want it. And something very interesting here is like what we call voice lab, right? This is where we can clone like Jeremy's voice. So I have like multiple options, but like instant voice cloning is the one that we're going to be using because it's like primarily instant. It takes about like 10 seconds to clone a voice. So we can say it's like Jeremy. here, we're going to be adding his data that he sent us yesterday, and then just going to confirm that I have the rights to clone the voice, and the voice is being synthesized in a second. Now it's available. I have Jeremy here that I can use for any project. And maybe for this, what we can actually do is like went to The Guardian this morning, and like we can select the first paragraph. It doesn't really matter that much. And let's actually change it, because let's try a different genre, different like type of content. So I can now select Jeremy over here. We can just make Jeremy a little bit more unstable to see how that works. And then we'll press generate. And then Jeremy is going to be talking about Taylor Swift in just a second. And just before we go into that, so this is the underlying data that we got from Jeremy.
On Wonder has a magical ability to transpose people from a
So you get an idea of the tone, right? This is the actual generation of the content.
Taylor Swift once again dominated the MTV Video Music Awards, VMAs, winning for every televised category in which she was nominated in a night that otherwise celebrated Latin music, including the preeminence of Shakira, as well as 50 years of hip-hop.
That's pretty much it. That was like really quick. Like, so you could see that like the clone of the voice actually has the same tone, the same pitch, like everything that Jeremy has. And that's only like with instant voice cloning, like a minute or 2 minutes worth of data, and we were able to do it like in 10 seconds. So like the technology has evolved like quite a lot in a matter of like essentially like 2019 all the way to here. We started only the company 20 months ago. So you can imagine like how things quickly are moving. And just to finalize, so we have a couple more minutes, but I think like what we are building overall is like an entire new layer of voice infrastructure, right? Something that is enabling companies and people to generate new experiences, intelligent products, and monetization options at scale. That's the only thing that really matters for us, right? And it's all about like giving everyone, the wider society, access to that. So it's benefiting. It needs to benefit everyone, like from artists to companies to consumers. If we're not benefiting the wider society, there is no purpose for us, right? Because like it cannot be that we're only benefiting the company side or like the consumer side. Like artists also need to be part of that equation overall. And when I think about it, like where are we going? Like some just rough ideas, right? Like so pre-production, post-productions, you can get your voice actually like to read like scripts for you and put it out loud, or you can actually use your AI voice for post-production instead of actually going and recording, re-recording in a studio 6 months after you finish a project. Why not to actually use your AI voice to make all of those changes that like the production needs? That's one type. Also about personalization of content and multilingual. How much content is actually not like dubbed today purely because like studios don't really know whether they're going to be making money on that or not, right? So this technology is able to actually do it. And then finally, like why not to actually generate like new revenue sources for actors? And when I think about it, like where we are actually going is like this hybrid AI human model, right? In which like the most impactful work that artists or I will be doing is going to be with my own voice. But there is going to be like a lot of extensions of my main work and other projects that I was not able to do before that I'm going to be using my AI voice. And I should be the one in control of it. And for us, like we've actually put a lot of emphasis in two things. One is like an AI, a voice marketplace in which anyone can create their own voice and then make money out of it. That's available today, and we're iterating on the model. And the final piece is about like AI classifier, right? To make sure that we monitor this use, that like we are able to recognize, and anyone in the public is able to actually recognize whether something was created by us or was created by the real human behind it, right? But I will stop in here. Thank you.
Quick round of applause. Wait here for a second, because I've got a question for you. Can I just say, I absolutely really appreciate the idea that how you make something more human is to make it more unstable. I feel like that has the ring of truth. I have just one question before we finish this. So let's say that I'm a voiceover artist. Should I be worried? What's the near future for voiceover artists?
No, actually, like the entire idea for us is that like the technology needs to benefit you as an artist, right? Put your voice, make your voice, be the owner of your AI voice, so that you can monetize it with new projects. Like, because up until now, if you were doing a project in London, but something came up in Japan, you wouldn't be able to actually do both at the same time. So like, take advantage of that and make, like, literally like duplicate yourself or triplicate yourself, right? Which is like really interesting.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can you give a massive round of applause to Carlos? Thank you so much. That was fascinating.